All right, guys. So, comedian Bill Burr recently weighed in on the assassination of a top U.S. health insurance executive, Brian Thompson. Now, there are a couple different updates that I'm probably going to get to in a separate video on the latest information on the shooter because there's a whole bunch to get to there, and I'm not going to be able to pack it into this video. But here we have Bill Burr sort of doubling down on a statement that he made a couple of days ago on this situation, criticizing the U.S. health insurance industry and CEOs like Brian Thompson. So I'll show you his original statement here in a second, but let's just go ahead and hear Bill Burr on his recent podcast episode posted yesterday.
You know what's annoying me about this kid who killed this CEO is none of these news programs are talking about the incredible lack of empathy from the general public about this. Because of how these insurance companies treat people when they're at their most vulnerable, after we've all given them our money every fucking month, and now we finally need you, and all you do is deny us. And then these pussies and all of these things are taking the pictures of their CEOs off their websites. You know, I got to be honest with you, okay? I love that fucking CEOs are fucking afraid right now. You should be. By and large, you're all a bunch of selfish, greedy fucking pieces of shit, and a lot of you are mass murderers. You just don't pull the trigger. That's why it looks clean. That's why these people look, oh my God, oh, he was just, walking into a hotel. It's like, okay, but what was his job? What did he do? What was the results of it? Did I tell you, like, out here in 2026, like, they're going to not have a sell-by date on food anymore, and they're trying to make it like they're trying to save regular people money? It's like, no, they're going to let grocery stores sell food past the fucking sell-by date because they weren't legally allowed to sell it. And then, they probably have to eat that. They have to eat, no pun intended, they have to eat the cost of that. So now they're going to pass it on to us. Okay, and that thing went through with Democrats and Republicans. Once again, selling us all out. They don't give a fuck.
All right. So listen, he's getting to a fundamental point on the reality of how both American politics work as well as how the US economy works, right? Which is that you have companies like United Healthcare that have a whole ton of baggage that I'll get to a little bit more here in a second, but their general gist with United Healthcare or Blue Cross Blue Shield or whatever the case may be, the entire function of some of these US companies is to deny you care in order to maximize their profits, right? You pay them on a monthly basis. Then you have some sort of a deductible whenever you want to go and you want to see the doctor, you want to receive some sort of form of healthcare. You pay them an exorbitant amount of money every single month, every single year. And then when the time comes that you actually need to receive healthcare and you need your health insurance to pay out, you have companies like United Healthcare, the CEO of which, Brian Thompson, was just assassinated, that will then do everything in their power to deny your coverage, which leads to bankruptcy, which is the number one cause of bankruptcy in the United States of America. This doesn't really happen in other, developed countries around the world. This is specific to the United States. That's the number one cause of bankruptcy. And then the other effect of that is that sometimes people just don't receive care at all because either they can't afford a health insurance plan, or they're priced out of the market, or maybe they don't think that it's worth it to try and go and get the medicine that they need, the care that they need, because they know they won't be able to afford the upfront cost. And so what he's getting at here is that this is not an industry where it is necessary to involve the profit motive in any way, shape, or form, right? That may not be how he said it, but that's what he's sort of getting at here, is that you have companies that exist for basically the sole purpose of being evil, of fucking you over, of potentially leading to your bankruptcy or your death for the profit maximization incentives that are involved in this industry in the first place. This is the exact precise reason why Bernie Sanders has, for decades at this point, unsuccessfully, been fighting for something like a Medicare for all, single-payer insurance program, where from the point of view of the patient, you and I, healthcare is relatively at least free at the point of service, And then everything is covered under one single health insurance plan. It removes a lot of the administrative costs. It removes a lot of the complexity of this. You have more freedom of choice, and you can just get healthcare for the sake of keeping yourself healthy, for the sake of keeping your family members alive, right? That's unfortunately not how the US healthcare system works. And so that's what he's getting to here, is that this is obviously a scam. This is obviously monumentally corrupt in a bipartisan way as well, which is something that he pointed out at the end of that clip there, which is that you not only have these health insurance, multi-billion-dollar companies that are profiting off of our suffering, but then you have those same companies, those same billionaires, those same executives who then finance the campaigns of Republicans and Democrats alike in order to keep the status quo in place, in order to fight against something like a Medicare for all single-payer system. Now, again, as I'm pointing out here, this is him basically doubling down on a statement he made a few days ago that sort of like drove up a little bit of controversy, and people were sort of attacking him for that. And keep in mind, from the mainstream media, from the establishment politicians, there has been universal condemnation, obviously, of the shooter, who we now have been identified as this guy, Luigi Maggioni, I believe is how you pronounce his name. But there's been universal condemnation of this, which, to some extent, it's like, okay, I get why politicians are going to condemn killing somebody on the street in broad daylight in New York City. But it's also like they're treating this guy as if he's a god, right? They're treating him as if he is the best man who's ever lived, as if there was no possible explanation for how we ended up in this position in the first place. And so the original statement that Bill Burr made a couple of days ago gets kind of to that, right? He said, quote, "You know what's funny? I was sitting here reading an article and I was like, oh my God, he's such a great guy. He had a wife and kids. He's such a great guy. And then you find out he and the other guys that he's working for are getting sued for dumping stock and not letting other people know." So what he's talking about here is an allegation, as pointed out here by the New York Post, of insider trading with the CEO who was just killed, this guy Brian Thompson, who reportedly sold shares worth $15.1 million on February 16th, less than 2 weeks before news of a federal antitrust probe went public. So in other words, again, insider trading, right? Now you also have further allegations against United Healthcare, the company that he represented, of them doing shit like this. Using AI, artificial intelligence, to deny patients medically necessary coverage. Now, there are other reports that I've seen, as I point out further down in this article, that this AI program that they were using to deny people coverage had a 90% error rate, right? Now, you also have claims like this from, just a comparison point of even United Healthcare compared to other health insurance companies. And United Healthcare's denial rate is pretty significantly above even other despicable corporations that you could list alongside them. Here we have United Healthcare at a 32% claim denial rate. You have Medica, the closest one, at 27%. You have Anthem, Blue Cross, Blue Shield at 23%. You had Aetna at 20%, CareSource at 20%. So in terms of corporations that are leading the charge on denying you care as much as they can possibly get away with, you have United Healthcare, right? Now, you also have, obviously, some of the evidence that we've gotten in the aftermath of this assassination, like the fact that there were apparently shell casings from the bullets that were fired in this assassination attempt, or successful assassination, I should say. The bullet casings had written markings on them that said things like deny, defend, depose, which is a common phrasing that's used in the health insurance industry in terms of their strategy for maximizing profit. So, you have things like this. There's a whole bunch of information that I want to get to in a separate video again on the latest info that we have on this guy Luigi, who was found at this McDonald's because somebody snitched on him, and we've gotten further information on his background and what potentially was his motive. But the point that I bring up here is simply because it's not about Brian Thompson as an individual. I don't really care. I couldn't give a shit if he was a great family man and he was loyal to his wife, which even that's in question if you look into a little bit of his family history. But besides the point again, I don't care if he was a good guy in his personal life. What he represents, okay? What he represents is a completely dystopian, dysfunctional, corrupted health insurance industry that does not need to exist. They simply function as a mafia-style middleman between you and your healthcare in an attempt to restrict the doctor that you want to go to, the healthcare center that you want to go to, and to deny you care as much as they can possibly get away with in order to maximize their profits. This is an industry. These are companies that do not need to exist in a functioning society. So the real lesson we should take away from this is that here in the United States, we pay more per capita and in a total sense than any other developed country on the face of the planet for healthcare. We get worse health results, meaning we have a lower life expectancy. We have worse rates of certain preventable illnesses and diseases than other developed countries. So we pay more, we get worse healthcare. And the reason for that is because we have companies like United Healthcare that exist. It's because profit is put first in our healthcare industry instead of actual healthcare. So that should be the real discussion that people are having right now. There's a lot of attention that's happening because of the way that this assassination happened, and it was crazy, and it's sort of like the first of its kind, at least in a long time. So I'm going to use this as much as I possibly can as an opportunity to try to shed light on how dysfunctional and corrupt our healthcare system is. And that's where the core of this conversation should be had, right? Not on the specifics of Brian Thompson being a great family man or Luigi being an interesting assassin or whatever the case may be. It should be on the flaws of the US healthcare system. And maybe there should be some questions being asked as to why there was basically bipartisan universal praise of this assassin, at least on social media, right? Maybe ask some questions as to why people are so fed up with this disgustingly corrupt healthcare system that they would be okay with overlooking an in broad daylight assassination, a murder of a top CEO of one of these companies.
Politic guy has the best politics. Believe me, no one does it like him. Believe me, everyone is saying